Hi, this is Eric. Welcome to the Longbox Review comic book podcast. Today's episode is my pull list review for books that I read in March 2024. I read 33 comic books during the month of March. I'm not going to be talking about all of them. Some of them just weren't worthy enough to make the list, but I will talk about most of these. And as usual for my pull list reviews, these are just, for the most part, quick thoughts on these particular titles. I did expand that little rule of mine a little bit this time, in particular for 2 issues, and I'll explain that in a minute. But yeah, I don't want to get too far or go too deep into these. Just to give you, like I said, quick thoughts on the books that I read. So let's jump in to this. Starting off with a couple books from Atomic Pulp. This is Sleuth Comics #1 and Space Crusaders featuring Rex Dexter of Mars #1. I bought the digital versions from Atomic Pulp. You can actually order them from Indie Planet, I believe, indieplanet.com. Yeah. And you can order the print versions. I assume they're print on demand. They've been both of these issues were published in 2019. I don't recall. I saw them on I guess on Twitter or somewhere online, maybe Facebook. I don't know, but they kept showing up on my social media timeline. I'm like, I should check those out. And eventually, I pulled the trigger some months ago and bought both issues. There are other titles, and I'll talk about, or I'll mention those briefly later on. But I wanted to try Sleuth Comics because it featured the character of Black Owl, and I wanted to try the Space Crusaders because it looked like more of a science fiction style comic book. And both comics and the Atomic Pulp publishing entity is the brainchild of Christopher Mills, who teamed up with a bunch of other people to produce these comic books. And this is part of why I wanted to get these, because Christopher Mills wanted to do his version of public domain characters, but in a 1970s mid to late Bronze Age style is how I take it, which he said in his afterword or introduction or on the website, I don't recall now, that is his favorite era of comic books. So I was intrigued by this Golden Age / Bronze Age mashup with a sort of modern spin, if you will, approach that Mills took to these. And so I like I said, I got these and read them. But on top of that, and I'm going to just start off, and I'm going to beg your indulgence here because once I read the issues, I had to find out more about these Golden Age characters, and which are now public domain characters, and not too many. I shouldn't say that. I have not been exposed to too many publishing ventures where they're taking public domain characters and doing something with them, aside from Dynamite's Project Superpowers line from several years back that was kind of headed up by Alex Ross for a while at least. And I'm sure there are others. I know there are others, actually. It just occurred to me there's another one that features the original Daredevil. I can't remember who that is by. But anyway, I've only read a little bit of Project Superpowers and now Mills's Atomic Pulp, a couple of his books. But it's really fascinating. How do you take these Golden Age characters that didn't really survive the Golden Age, so to speak? They didn't become popular in any sense comparatively. So what do you do when you take those Golden Age characters and bring them into our modern sensibilities about superheroes and comic book publishing and storytelling and all that stuff? And I will get into that. I'll give you my thoughts about these particular comic books a little bit later. But like I said, that led me down this path of I wanted to know more about these characters. And if, like I said, begging your indulgence, bear with me here because I'm gonna go into that a little bit because I found it very interesting. So we'll start off with Black Owl, since I'm talking about Sleuth Comics featuring the Black Owl. So Black Al is a Golden Age character, as I said, who appeared in several issues of Prize Comics in the 1940s. And this next information I took from the public domain superheroes wiki. So in case you are interested in what in this particular area as I am, you can go check out that wiki and find out more about these other public domain characters, which I plan to do so. Let's see. Doug Danville was a wealthy New York playboy who decided to fight crime. Who does that sound like? He put on a costume and began his career as K the Unknown. Okay, so, at least they tried a little bit there. Not to make him too much like, somebody else that might have fit that same description. He later, however, changed his costume and adopted the moniker of the Black Owl. So they succumbed to the temptation, I guess. Sometime after he gave up the K the Unknown identity, Doug got involved with Terry Dane, a private investigator. True to tradition, she admired the Black Owl and belittled Doug Danville for being useless. Yeah. He continued fighting criminals in this guise until he enlisted in the army and handed down his costume to Walt Walters. The double consonants of these names it's just so funny. The father of Yank and Doodle. Other characters that appeared in comic books. His enemies included Chief Skullface, the Fox, Frankenstein, Funnybone, who makes an appearance in Sleuth Comics #1, the Green Mummy, the Tiger Lady, the Laughing Head, which I also have in my notes seen in this issue, but I don't remember, and the Terrible Midge, which, if you know midges, they are terrible. Anyway, in the book Superhero Comics of the Golden Age, Mike Benton says that making a connection between these two features on the part of the publisher later was a clever move. By making the Black Owl the father of Yank and Doodle, the editors found a logical way to combine their best heroes into one popular feature with intriguing results. For the first year after assuming the mantle of the Black Owl, Walt Walters never told his sons his secret identity. That is somewhat appealing, actually. After they learn his father is the Black Owl, oops, spoilers, the boys and dad are just one happy crime-fighting family, a healthy outlet for any father-son or sibling rivalry. See, doesn't that make you want to go back and read those? It does me, anyway. In issues 7 through 9, the Black Owl stories were written and drawn by Legends to Be, Joe Simon, and Jack Kirby, and it was Kirby's first superhero feature, according to the information I found. I did not know that. So that's kind of cool. I probably should have looked that up to corroborate that. And it's true to form. I checked a lot of things before I pressed the record button, and this one slipped by. Anyway, so if you know the answer to that, if this information is incorrect, please let me know. Anyway, so let's get into. I'll give you a description of the story in Sleuth Comics. It's titled "Scream of the Silent Skull." There's that alliteration again. This new version of Black Owl gives us a Bronze Age-like Batman type. Yes, he's dark and serious, but he smiles and cracks jokes too. His Alfred is Athena, the twin sister of his dead wife, Elena. After Black Owl apprehends his Joker, called Funnybone, he gets a tip from hard-boiled PI Mike Lancer about a new supervillain in town who apparently compelled a room full of gangsters to kill themselves, as Mike Lancer witnessed. When Black Owl confronts the crime boss Marco Kane at a nightclub, the Silent Skull, named later by Athena, shows up to kill Marco. Silent Skull mind controls the nightclub patrons to attack Black Owl. After Black Owl gets out, the Silent Skull is gone. Later, Black Owl theorizes that he was unaffected by the telepathic terror because the bullet that killed his wife is lodged in his frontal lobe. He directs Athena to come up with a means to block the Skull's telepathy. Later, the Skull attacks Kane at his house, and we are told the Skull's secret. He's Marco's older brother, Dominic, whom Marco tried to kill by blowing up a tanker filled with toxic chemicals. This explosion, along with the toxic chemicals, transformed Dominic into the Silent Skull. Black Owl arrives and the two fight, ending with the Skull being captured, of course. The issue ends with Silent Skull being driven away. The next issue blurb promises an appearance by Ms. Fury, which has appeared in I still want to say Dynamite, but maybe some other comics. Anyway, I know that she has had. I actually have a few issues of one of her titles that was published in the last, I don't know, 5 to 10 years. But unfortunately, that never happened. There were letters pages as well, with letters from Andrew Kaplan, if you're familiar with that writer, and Mike W. Barr. So it looks like Christopher Mills sent out copies of these books to people he knew or people he admired. I don't know, and they obliged by sending in some letters complimenting him on his efforts. Also included was a 2-page Who's Who Ohatmu type entry on Black Owl. So you get all the deets on this guy that I basically told you about earlier. Unfortunately, to me, this read like any typical 1970s Batman story that I've ever encountered. It was fine. It was fine. It was okay. If by the numbers, superhero storytelling. So, yeah, it's all right. I wanted to know more about P.I. Lancer and Alfred like Athena, which I assume, if they continued with it or if somebody else was doing this, picked up the Black Owl public domain character and decided to do something. Actually, I don't know if Athena is also Golden Age or if that's something that Mills came up with. Anyway, but I could, totally see upping the will they, won't they tension, sexual tension between these two characters. Considering that, Athena is the twin of his dead wife. So I don't know. That none of that was in this particular issue that I read. Okay, so despite my kind of middling reaction to it, I was looking forward to more. But as I mentioned earlier, this was the only issue of Sleuth Comics so far. So even though the next issue blurb gave us some titillating facts to look forward to, did not happen. So I don't know why, and it's been 2019. I assume it's just because Christopher Mills, wasn't this whole venture was not as successful as he would have liked. All right, let's move on to Space Crusaders. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I forgot to give you the credits to Sleuth Comics, #1. As I said, written by Christopher Mills, Don Secrece, Rich Burchett, who did the cover, and Matt Webb are the collaborators on that issue. And for Space Crusaders, Mills again, Peter Grau, who did the cover, and Matt Webb again, I think on letters. So, the character of Rex Dexter of Mars was featured in Mystery Men comics in between 1939 and 1941. Yes, this is the same title that launched Blue Beetle. So I thought that was interesting. This story seems to fit after issue 3. The story that I'm going to tell you about in a minute seems to fit after that Golden Age issue #3 and Rex's exile from Earth. So, to give you a little background on Rex Dexter, in 1939, Montague Dexter built a rocket ship for that year's World Fair. To demonstrate that it works, he and his wife took off and flew to Mars. As you do. A little bit of Fantastic Four vibes there, right? Unfortunately, the ship crashed as soon as it reached the Red Planet. Montague spent the next 61 years trying to repair the ship. So let's assume that Montague is 20 to 30. And so, he's in his 80s and 90s there to fix that ship. By that point, he and his wife were far too old, as I was just getting at, to handle the rigors of space travel back to Earth. But their son, Rex Dexter, was young and fit. He piloted his parents' spaceship to Earth, the Earth of the year 2000. 2000 was much more advanced than the world his parents left behind. But young Rex didn't have much time to adjust to the new surroundings as the United States came under attack from a mad scientist holed up in Europe. As they often are. Which was reduced to a radioactive wasteland during a world war that occurred sometime in the 1950s. Considering the Korean War and other conflicts around the world, that's pretty prescient of the whoever wrote this originally. Rex helped the American military repel the invasion. From that point on, he decided to protect Earth from alien and terrestrial menaces. Rex became romantically involved with Cindy, a girl that he rescued from space pirates in his debut appearance. A little over a year later, a monster he brought from another planet escaped from his ship's hold, leaving massive destruction in its wake. Although Rex managed to kill the creature, people of Earth were angry at Rex for bringing a monster in the first place, and they banished him. I don't know, it seems kind of prudent to me. Luckily for Rex, Cindy joined him into exile. The pair spent the next few months in space, flying from planet to planet, stopping any menaces they found along the way. Eventually, Rex got word that Earth was attacked by yet another group of aliens. He was able to stop the invasion, and the people of Earth gladly forgave him. And so this story, called The Menace of the Saurian Sphere, kind of takes that whole exile and then the forgiveness of the people of Earth and puts a little spin on it. So at least there's that with this story. So what happens in this? We get Rex and Cindy en route to Mars when they get a call from Earth. Astral Command wanting Rex's help in stopping a moon-sized metal sphere that's on a collision course with Earth, and only Rex is in range to help. And I assume that Mr. Mills was, maybe taking a little bit from the Star Trek films regarding that. They tell him if he helps, the government will rescind Rex's exile from Earth. Rex and Cindy board the sphere and encounter a killer robot. They run away and find themselves deeper into the sphere in a lush green place with dinosaurs, of course. A Tyrannosaurus Rex attacks them, and soon a group of what Rex calls cavemen arrive to help. Rex is the one to deliver the deadly blow, which impresses Foxgar, the tribal chief. They celebrate with the tribe, revealing the tribe lives in a sphere traveling through space. Violating the Prime Directive. Rex gets an idea on how to save the day and plans to leave in the morning. The chief's daughter, intrigued by Rex's and Cindy's stories, asks to go with them. After they leave, Rex and Cindy build a bomb from spare parts of their ship, and after a skirmish with the sphere's robot sentries, Rex plants the bomb on the surface of the sphere, and they detonate it, which alters its collision course. Later, the Earth president invites Rex and Cindy to a reception in their honor, but they decide to continue on to Mars and then wherever the space lanes take them, I guess. Also appearing in this issue was the opening chapter of a Lance Lewis space detective story where an alien claiming to be mind-swapped asks for Lewis's help. And I don't think I need to get into that. It was an introduction to a longer story, which I assume would appear in later issues of Space Crusaders. All right, I liked this story a little bit less than the Black Owl story. I felt it was a little too derivative of Star Trek and The Lost World. I mean, how many times are we going to see, a dinosaur-infested land? Anyway, Rex and Cindy were barely even characters, and knowing that issue 2 features, because I looked it up, because I could have bought that issue 2 as well. It features Space Hawk, the superhuman enemy of crime. Why in the story, why did Mills add the chief's daughter at the end? Presumably she would make further appearances, but I don't know. Basically, she contributed nothing to the plot. Like I said, maybe if the series continued, we would see that more. I don't know. It was just a weird choice, just from a single story aspect. So overall, after reading both of these issues, I basically came to the conclusion, I kind of liked them. It was kind of neat to see, like I said, Bronze Age style story, superhero storytelling. But I think my tastes have moved on. They've changed and moved on. I don't want simple stories like those that I read in my youth or here. I want really great characters, and I want nuanced storytelling. Something a little more than what I got here. And I'm being partially unfair because I've only read one issue of each, and I would normally, if this were a new comic book series, I would read at least 3 to 6 issues before I pulled the plug on something I wasn't enjoying, just to give it a chance. However, I won't be returning to the atomic pulp realm anytime soon. But if 1970s style comics like this are your bag and you want to try something new, you could give these and some of the other titles that Mills has a try. For example, there's Femme Noir, which seems to be the most number of issues out of all of these. The Mighty Crom, which you can kind of tell that's, a Conan pastiche. Perils on Planet X, which I think is the second longest running title, and Captain Midnight, the Captain Midnight one shot. And I remember Captain Midnight also appearing in that whole Project Superpowers Dynamite line. Anyway, you can, like I said before, you can find all of these at indieplanet.com. Oh, and I just so you know, and because I found this confusing, I wanted particular covers because Black Owl, I think, it had at least 3 versions of the cover, and I couldn't. It was strange because I tried to order the one cover I wanted, but I couldn't do that. So I ordered the one for the digital version anyway, and so I just gave up and decided I'll just get the whatever the one it was. But the digital version came with all 3 covers. So, there you go. Just want to make sure you knew what you're getting into there. Anyway.
According to the latest report from FalsifiedStats.com, there are currently 12 million active comic book podcasts clogging up the internet superhighway, and 2.3 million new comic book podcasts are being created every single day. If you're looking for something a little different, then let me tell you about Mike's Comic Shop Roadshow. Mike travels the globe and visits comic shops along the way, talking to the owners or really just whomever happens to be minding the store that day. And it's through these conversations that you'll meet some wonderful people and learn how comic shops are run in places like Murfreesboro, Illinois, and Liverpool, New South Wales, Australia. So check out Mike's Comic Shop Roadshow, a truly unique comic book podcast among billions of the same old, same old. Find it now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Mike, and I approve this message.
Next up, I read Legion of Superheroes number 46, which was featured in the last Legion Project episode, which is out already as you listen to this episode. So if you've not read Legion of Superheroes 46, or you have and you haven't listened to the episode, here's a reminder. Go listen to the Legion Project podcast with me and Peter so that you can hear us talking about our favorite space heroes as we march to issue 50. I guess the Golden Age is making, or we have a through line a little bit here, tiny bit here, because I read the Justice Society of America, number 8. This issue features the daughter of the Golden Age Red Lantern, Ruby Sokolov, and of course her name is Ruby, and she has red skin to boot, so... who now has control of the Crimson Flame, which is interestingly similar to how Alan's daughter Jade did with the Green Flame. So I don't know if they're going to play with that. I doubt it, but I thought that was interesting. While there's the typical fighty fight between Alan and Ruby, Alan does convince Ruby to talk instead, which I liked. We don't have to have a slugfest every time between 2 superpowered beings. And then so they go into this bar for their talk. I really enjoyed this scene, as much for what was said as wasn't between them, because Alan hints at the relationship that he had with Ruby's grandfather, and she knows that he's holding something back, but they don't really get into the details of it. And also we get to see Alan using his power ring to alter their appearance in the bar to show them as, just 2 regular people, not 2 costumed folks, especially when one of them has red skin, which I don't know that I've ever seen Alan do something like that, but I haven't read every story featuring Alan Scott, but I thought that was really cool. I did find this issue odd though, in that I read it before I read Alan Scott, the Green Lantern numbers 5 and 6, meaning I got the legacy character of Ruby before the end of her father's story in the miniseries, which I thought was an odd choice on DC's part, but maybe that was more of a publication issue because, there was sometime I was looking this up. Looks like that the Justice Society of America was publishing every 2 months until I think between issues 7 and 8, or was it 8 and 9, where a few more months passed instead. So, it's taken a while for this series to get out. I think mostly because of Jeff Johns' schedule. Anyway, the issue ends with the tease of the Legionnaire character, which has shown up before, but this character is dressed in all black except for the metal mask, which is reminiscent of Pharaoh Lad, and this yellow belt that he wears, which looks, I don't know, it looks familiar to me, but I can't quite place it. He is talking to someone through I presume, his flight ring, and even uses the word Greif, placing him squarely in the 30th, or is it 31st century? So I am very much looking forward to seeing what this character is all about in the overall story in Justice Society of America, and what happens with Helena Wayne and all of the other reformed villains that she talks, she tells the JSA about them, and that's why Alan wants to bring Ruby back, because Ruby was one of them. In the JSAs, I don't know, the whole timeline thing in JSA I find very confusing, so we'll see how it ends. I know that issue 12 is the final issue, and I've read issue 9, so yeah, anyway. All right, next up is Third Shift Society, which is a collection of the first 5 chapters, is that right? Anyway, this is by Meredith Moriarty. I saw this while looking through previews and was instantly drawn in by the guy in the preview image with the pumpkin head. His name is Ichabod. Maybe a little too on the nose there with that naming, but I'll forgive it. And upon further investigation, I found this was a webcomic collection from a comic on Webtoon. So I immediately went there, read a little bit of it, and knew I wanted to get the collection to support this artist, and I was not disappointed. I love this book. Ichabod is a hired gun for people who are plagued by otherworldly phenomena, and Ellie becomes his assistant. She helps him with a scuffle and ends up manifesting blue flames around her hands during the fight. Because of this, he offers her a job, which is exactly what Ellie needs at that time, because she's broke and has a lot of debt. They have a few more adventures during the rest of the book, while Ellie learns more about Ichabod's world and her own abilities. It's kind of like Tim Hunter in the Books of Magic, only more fun and less dark. And I really hope they continue printing these. So I know that Ms. Moriarty has a whole other book already on Webtoon that they could do. So basically this first book, Volume 1, is Season 1 of Third Shift Society, and Season 2 is already done. And I know she's working on Season 3. So I really, really hope that they put out that second volume. All right. Fantastic Four, number 14. I thought that issue 12 of this series would give us the return of the Baxter Building and everyone inside. I thought that was the whole point of that particular story point, and then it would culminate in issue 12. 12 issues, that seems like a logical change point, I guess, resolution point, and that didn't happen. I thought, oh, okay, then issue 13 would do that, would give us that resolution. But no. North and Company tortured us for yet another issue before that huge plot thread was finally realized. And not only do we get a joyous reunion, we get an awesome sci-fi story with heart, with the AI that's in the story as it becomes sentient and evolves. And so, at first you're thinking it's going to be like some sort of Ultron situation, right? But it turned into something way cooler. And I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to say any more. Other than, I think you should really go read this series and this issue in particular, because these 14 issues of Fantastic Four, probably the best. Well, I really enjoyed the Hickman written run a lot, but this is, I've tried other Fantastic Four runs between Hickman's and this one, and they were okay. But this is probably my favorite of all. But I also need to read the Mark Waid written run with who was it? Oh my gosh, I've forgotten the artist. Sorry. Anyway, I quite enjoyed that first epic collection that I've read, and I need to read the other two. But so far, this is really, really good. Next up is, and although I don't have much to say about this, Sunflowers. It was a one-shot done by Kesey Young. And I've said this before, I'm always on the lookout for one-shots. Just, it's something easy and simple to try. Get exposed to new talent, or at least new to me. And when I found out what this comic was about, which is Kesey expressing her thoughts about her own depression and how that impacts her life and others as well. Hey everybody, Future Eric here, busting in to let you know that when I said depression, the comic was about bipolar disorder. I apologize for the incorrect terminology there, and I'm just going to use this general disclaimer. So when I say depression, referring to Kesey Young's Sunflowers comic book, I really meant to say bipolar disorder. Again, apologies there. I had to try it. Plus, some of the preview images were like the artistry is so good. Like I would describe it as a expressionistic art style, with like these muted colors, but it works so well. It's like reading something from the 1970s with the imagery that's being evoked and how it's presented. But it's about this very intimate and personal struggle that the artist has, but it's just told so beautifully. It's like, oh my God, I think I'll reserve any more thoughts about this for a future, say, one-hit wonder episode, because I really want to kind of like deep dive into that particular one shot. But it was so good. I've been following Kesey Young on social media since then, and she's quite prolific on there. But it was just a delight, which is weird to say because it's about depression, but it was such a delight and it was a breath of fresh air, if you will. So anyway, all right. I also read a new Alpha Flight #1 issue. I don't need to talk about that. Batman Superman World's Finest #24, however, I will, because while I've been disappointed somewhat by this story arc, the whole Return to Kingdom Come thing, the ending here made up for it, and it managed to tie into the past and future of the original Kingdom Come story. David's decision to embody the worst impulses of a superpowered being by killing another creature, I'll say, sets him on his path that we see later in the original Kingdom Come, and then we get to see him in the future where he is redeemed to some degree, I'll say, because of his regretful nature. Unfortunately, I thought that how we are basically told that David has made amends without really being shown what he's done, it was not as satisfying. It would have been nice to see, I don't know, another issue, one more issue, or half an issue of it. But it was like, from our Batman and Superman's perspective, David kills this person thing, and David just like goes off on him and leaves. And the Spectre shows up. Is it the Spectre? Yeah, the Spectre shows up basically to take them back to, their normal universe. But Superman demands to see what happens to David in the future. And Spectre obliges. And now David's an older man, and he's regretful of what he had done in his past. And Clark forgives him. And that's it. I don't feel like that resolution was earned. It was like being told a story instead of it being shown to us. I realized, they were kicking off a whole new chapter with issue 25, and 25 being kind of a, sort of the first milestone issue of a comic book series. But you're just like, well, maybe do less of the fight stuff. Apparently that's my new phrase for this episode in previous issues, and give us a little, a few more pages of the emotional impact of what they were trying to get to. So anyway, however, I will say just overall, at least this issue did have a bit more emotional weight for the entire arc. It just wasn't quite there. So I guess I'm willing to forgive the flaws of this particular issue, although it didn't really sound like it did it. All right. Next up is Batman's former sidekick, Nightwing. This is issue 111. When I saw the cover and what this issue was about, I was a bit skeptical. The Batman comes to town stories are a mixed bag, meaning what kind of Batman will we get? Will the story trod familiar ground? That is, we get the scowly Batman who criticizes everything like a pointy-eared know-it-all. Or do we get the caring father version, which we occasionally will? And so I was pleasantly surprised to see the caring dad Batman show up, one who's in his own son's house, so to speak, and treats his son respectfully and lovingly. And it was a nice change of pace. So, Batman didn't just come and say, hey, your mess is now affecting my city, clean it up or I will, which is kind of what I expected. And what it was is like, hey, I saw this in Gotham and I think your guy is starting to expand his business, so to speak. And so then they go off and try to, do what they do. So I thought that was great. It was more like a Nightwing teaming up with Batman story rather than Batman showing up and taking over story. So I like that. Here's another one-shot that I read, Saucer Country, the finale by Ryan Kelly, Paul Cornell, Pippa Boland, and Simon Boland. I had bought the original series, Saucer Country, and then they did, later it returned as Saucer State. Saucer Country was originally done by Vertigo. Saucer State was, I think, IDW. Anyway, and then imagine my shock when I see this one shot concluding the story 7 years after the last published issue and 12 years after the whole thing started. Right? While this was a nice enough, here are all the answers story, which is what it was to me, I don't know that I really needed it. Kind of like the 11th season of The X-Files. After this long, did I care? Did I care about this? More to the point, do I care in the way this wrapped up everything in a nice, neat bow? Maybe you can guess already. No. I'd have to go back and read how Saucer State ended to compare, but my recollection was while we didn't have all the answers, I was satisfied enough, I guess. So, it was just odd to see this. Why did it take so long to get this finale issue? Why did they greenlight such a thing? It's just weird unless there's some sort of, I don't know, that there's going to be like a TV show or a movie. I don't know. I think I remember hearing at one point that the media rights were bought and they were developing something. But anyway, it was okay. It was again, going back to the X-Files comparison, it was like going back to the well, and should they have not done that? And I kind of think so. Anyway, even though I liked it, even though that was a property that I liked, I'm in both properties, Saucer Country and X-Files. All right, enough of that kind of talk. All right, next up is Scarlet Witch, numbers 2 through 4. This is from the 2015 series. Reading these was a mistake. I had read the first issue of the Sarah Bocelli, Steve Orlando 2023 series some time ago and meant to get back to it. And then when I did, or I thought I did, I accidentally had started reading this earlier series written by James Robinson. But as I was reading it, I seriously did not realize I was reading a totally different comic book called Scarlet Witch. But I did pick up on the fact that Like, for example, why was Wanda trying to cure magic? I thought she was helping people who came through the red door. Did I miss something there? So anyway, I did eventually figure it out, but I really liked the art styles I was seeing in this series. And the David Aja covers weren't too shabby either. I mean, those are a huge draw for me. So each issue had a different, for the most part, and I'm referring to the overall series, but I'll explain a little bit about these 3 issues. So it's kind of like reading an anthology title, but it has a through line with Scarlet Witch and what story James Robinson and his collaborators are trying to tell us. I thought the part about fixing magic was okay, but the whole every time Wanda uses magic, she ages part was kind of ignored until the end. I mean, there's a little bit in issue 4, but as I recall from issue 5 through, I want to say there were 15 issues. Anyway, it felt like that they just kind of dropped that for a while. But that's getting into the future. Let's talk about these 3 issues. In issue 2, which was drawn beautifully by Marco Rudy, with panel layouts that are unusual for a superhero book, Wanda tussles with a Minotaur who isn't what he appears to be. And I actually had to look up the character reference that, when they do the character reveal, I had to look that up to make sure that was like an actual Marvel character. But it was really good. Such great panel layouts and flow, and dissolves from panels to panels. It was great. Marco Rudy is great. In issue 3, drawn mostly by Steve Dillon, Wanda had to deal with the curse of the slew ghosts of Irish sinners. The issue ends with her on the Witch's Road, which that sequence was drawn by Chris Visions. And she meets another woman calling herself the Scarlet Witch. Issue 4 picks up where the previous issue ends, and drawn by the same artist, mostly by Visions and then a little bit by Dillon. And Wanda battles the Emerald Warlock, who is kind of following her around and also stealing the power of other, witches or warlocks or whatever. I really like the approach to the character in this series so far, issues 2 and 4, and the rest of it too. Especially the different having the different artists. And so I kept reading, as I said, and I will talk about those issues in future Pro List reviews, I'm sure. And eventually I'll get back to the 2023 series. All right. Another Marvel series here. Lots of Marvel. This is the Star miniseries collected in a volume. This collects issues 1 through 5. All I knew going in was that there was this new character called Star that I'd heard about, seen in solicitations and whatnot from Marvel, and I liked the costume. I thought the costume looked pretty cool, so I wanted to know more about this character. And I was kind of waiting to see, or waiting for issues to show up in the Marvel Unlimited app, and then I saw this collection. I'm like, I'll just get the collection. But now I need to go back and read her introduction, I think in the Captain Marvel series, maybe something else. But anyway, I had no idea that, going into this collection, this miniseries collection, that Star carried an Infinity Stone inside of her, and that Captain Marvel was her mortal enemy. I thought perhaps that they had partnered up, but no, there's some bad blood there that they explore a little bit in this miniseries. I did love how Star wasn't your typical superhero. She is hesitant with her power, doesn't exactly know what she wants to do with it, gets a panic attack when Captain Marvel first confronts her in the series, and teeters on the edge of quote-unquote villainy at times. In other words, she's a complex, very human superhuman, and I loved the series for that, and now I want to read more. So I don't know what they're doing with this character. Beyond this, I need to go look it up, but I'm very curious now. She's one of the better, newer characters that I've seen Marvel play with a little bit. I was actually kind of surprised that she got a miniseries of her own, but there you go. I do recommend this. I also read Marvel Saga number 10, trying to get through the 12 issues that I have of that. I don't need to talk about that, but I will end this episode talking about Newburn Volume 1, which collects issues 1 through 8 by Jacob Phillips and Chip Zdarsky. So, when this series was announced, I knew I'd be getting the trade. Having read much of Zdarsky's Daredevil run and other things that he's done, I figured he could do a crime story like this. But somehow, I missed the release of this first collection. I don't know how. It only came to my attention because I saw the solicit for Volume 2. And so I couldn't order Volume 2 without having ordered and read Volume 1. But fortunately, I was able to order Volume 1 and get it delivered with my next month's books because it was available. And I have ordered Volume 2. This is your typical guy with a special set of skills story who takes on a somewhat reluctant apprentice. Now that I'm thinking about it, it kind of reminds me of the old movie The Mechanic with Bronson and, oh my gosh, Jan Michael Vincent, I think? Did I get that right? I might think of a different movie. Anyway, Newburn himself is likable despite what he does and what he did in his past, which they allude to quite a bit. And that opinion of him may change as I get to know more, because he's not a good guy, but he is our protagonist. So Emily, who is the reluctant apprentice, actually not so reluctant. I don't know why I put reluctant in there. She seems reluctant at first because she's smart and she can kind of see kind of see what she's getting into by pairing up with Newburn, but she does it anyway. She's immensely likable, and but over her head, even if she wouldn't like to admit it. It very much makes her our point of view character, like Ellie in the Third Shift Society. Man, I'm having trouble saying things today. As Newburn investigates the shaky détente? I don't know. French words bug me. Between the various crime families he serves. By the end of the volume, things are not looking good for Newburn or Emily, which only makes me want to read Volume 2 all the more. So, yeah, good way to end it. I will also note that, as I said, this volume contains 8 issues of Newburn, but I felt like the length of the collection seemed a little thin. And I happened to make some comment about that on social media, and my buddy Travis, who read it through single issues, informed me that there was additional material, like a backup story and maybe other things that made up the complete issue of Newburn. So that's why but despite that, I would totally recommend reading this volume just because of how good Jacob Phillips is really turning into, quite the successor to his father's work, and having his own style. I still see Sean Phillips in Jacob's work, but I still like it. It's great. Zdarsky is giving us a cool crime comic. So I like it. I can't wait to return to it. All right, that is all I have for the month of March 2024 of the books that I read. You can send feedback, questions, comments to longboxreview@gmail.com. I'm on social media at longboxreview, and please go listen to Mike's Comic Book Roadshow. It's a great podcast that I've been. I had the honor of being on for an episode, and if the stars align correctly, and I get caught up on things, and I don't have a bajillion things come up. June was very busy for me with Maddie's graduation and other things that we had going on. I hope to have Mike on the show as well, so you get to hear him and us talking about comic books in the very near future. And I've got some other great things coming up too. I've asked some people to join me for things, so please look out for those things. And with that, thank you for listening, and I will talk to you later. Bye-bye.